Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of catching up. I have been away busy at college, and I am finally home for the winter break so I can discuss a topic that I have been wanting to talk about for a while. Honestly, I thought somebody else was going to talk about it since I was gone, but nobody did. So, you all get F tier. To start our catch up, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Yes, Microsoft now officially owns Activision and all of its games and all of its game studios. Yes, that includes Skylanders. And who could forget our Lord and Savior? Alright, everybody, put your tinfoil hats on and let's get into this. Interestingly enough, though, Phil Spencer, the CEO of Xbox, actually did name drop Skylanders when asked if there were any games that he potentially wanted to bring back.
Are there any other games or franchises, just for you personally, deep in the vault that we can now potentially explore that you're just personally excited for people to discover for the first time or maybe rediscover?
I hadn't really thought about that question. Specific on Activision and Blizzard, there's some moments in Activision's history. You mentioned Tony Hawk, you mentioned Guitar Hero, even things like Skylanders, or that were moments where the teams kind of innovated outside of expectation. What do you mean I'm going to carry a plastic guitar and plug it into my console and play? Like, that's never going to work until it worked. And then everybody said, well, of course that was going to work. Skylanders kind of the same way.
Now, Phil did kind of twist the question there, where he kind of ended up just talking about games that bring innovation to the table. And obviously, Skylanders, Rock Band, those are like big contenders for game innovation with their accessories and all that. But in a technical sense, he did name drop Skylanders specifically when asked the question if there were any games he wanted to bring back. Not only that, but he is 100% on board with revisiting older franchises, as well as he wants the teams to make something that they're passionate about.
The first thing, as I kind of mentioned before, is to go spend time with the teams. Because I just don't think that a team working on something that isn't their passion leads to the best result. I do think with Game Pass, we have the ability to maybe pick a couple franchises every year and almost do like a revisited. I just made up that term, so it's not a brand.
It's not on a box.
It's not on a box, but I tease about things like Hexen just because I remember playing it as a kid. I have no plan for that. But I do think when you look across all of the franchises that are a part of our teams, there's an opportunity for us to go back, even if it's just to recognize the moment and what those things meant in gaming's history and do something right with it, make it available to people through Game Pass. I think there's an opportunity. There's not a plan for that, but there's an opportunity. If teams want to go back and revisit some of the things that we have and do kind of a full focus on it, I'm going to be all in.
When Phil states that there is no plan, but there is an opportunity, he means that teams, if they want to, can revisit those franchises and he will be 100% behind it. This is the case of many franchises like Alan Wake and Psychonauts. The only reason the sequels for those games got made is the team behind them wanted to make them. Alan Wake and Psychonauts are both cult classics, but nobody at Microsoft necessarily was pushing for those sequels to be made. They're not as popular as something like Call of Duty, but it shows that developers flourish under the Xbox family. Developers being allowed to create what they want and having a lot of creative freedom is the recipe for a good game, and this is something that Phil recognizes. And only if there was a game studio that was passionate about the Skylanders franchise and would love to make a new one.
We love making Skylanders games for you, and we miss doing that.
Oh, come on!
I don't think there's a more capable team than Toys for Bob. They are so incredibly passionate about what they create, and it's very clear that they loved working on Skylanders, and given the opportunity, I think they'd do it again. But we need to check on what Toys for Bob is currently doing. Toys for Bob is currently still working on Crash Team Rumble. It's just entered its 3rd season, which introduced Spyro. Once again, put your tinfoil hats on. I mean, the tagline of the season is all fired up, which of course that doesn't mean jack squat or anything, but you know, that's the Skylander thing. That's what the Skylander Spyro says.
All fired up.
Now, of course, I'm sure All Fired Up is not directly just a Skylanders thing. I'm sure it's on the back of some Spyro box that I'm unaware of or something like that. But, you know, as a Skylander fan, you look at it and go, oh, that's the thing he says in the video game that I like. But, you know, whatever. Not only that, but a Skylanders quote is said in-game. He says, mess with the dragon, get the horns.
Mess with the dragon, get the horns. Spyro wins.
Mess with the dragon, get the horns.
At first, people were telling me this was a Spyro commercial reference, but I actually did go and watch the commercial that they were referencing, and that's not how the quote goes. The quote goes, mess with this dragon, and you'll get burned.
Spyro's back. Mess with this dragon, and you'll get burned.
So I'm pretty sure that this one's actually a Skylanders reference. I mean, I wouldn't put it past Toys for Bob to put another reference into one of their games. Crash Team Rumble already has a Skylanders reference, and some of their previous work has Skylanders references in it as well, including the Eruptor Balloon in Crash 4, the achievement name in Spyro Ignited Trilogy for talking to the balloonist, as well as sneaking the Trap Team poster into some of the achievement concept art. It's very in line with Toys for Bob to reference Skylanders. They love it dearly. Question is, what is the next step here? Well, obviously references don't always necessarily mean anything normally, and usually they don't mean anything. But in Crash Team Rumble, it is a little weird that for their Season 2 launch, that they would add Ripto, a character from Spyro, and then Season 3 would immediately launch, and it's another collab character, this time just being Spyro himself. Now, of course, it's not unusual because Crash and Spyro kind of go bread and butter together. They're usually always associated together, so having Spyro in a Crash game isn't that surprising. It's the typical audience that grew up with Spyro and Crash games, like both, so it's not that crazy to have him in the game. But I could totally see Toys for Bob trying to add at least one Skylander to the game. I'm 50-50 on it because obviously the general audience for Spyro and Crash Bandicoot aren't typically the biggest fans of Skylanders, but I could totally see Toys for Bob try and do it regardless. They obviously have a deep passion for the series and always keep referencing it. So it wouldn't surprise me if they ended up trying to add a Skylander and a Skylands themed stage just like they did with Spyro. That would obviously come way before them making a new game or remastering something. It's true, Spyro fans don't like Skylanders Spyro especially, but I don't think Spyro and Crash fans particular have that much of an issue with the other Skylander characters like Trigger Happy, Gilgrunt, Chop Chop, etc. It's mostly just Spyro himself, so I think a majority of them would be fine with an additional character being from Skylanders, as long as it's not the Skylander Spyro himself. Adding a Skylander would also be very healthy for the game, as it would bring in new players to buy the game, which will please all fan bases. A healthy and active game is a good game, and adding a Skylander will bring in people that didn't think about trying the game until now. Not only that, but Crash Team Rumble fans themselves will get new content to play with, so it's a win-win. Alright, moving on to our next topic, Toys for Bob tweeted this out the other day. We took some time out to get together and share our latest experiments in Unreal Engine 5. It was a full day of excellent presentations with plenty of learnings, and fresh ideas for the new year. Now, what does this mean? It could mean nothing, but currently, Crash Team Rumble is on Unreal Engine 4. Crash Team Rumble doesn't really seem like the game that they would try to port to a new engine. So, either A, this is a new game of some variety, Or B, this is just the team experimenting with stuff, which it totally could be. But it would not surprise me if this is a new project that they're working on. Whether it be a totally new IP, whether it be an existing IP like Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, or Skylanders, or maybe even something like Banjo-Kazooie. Personally, I think we're a little bit too early into the acquisition for something like that to happen, but it could happen. You can probably see the screen is blurred. I personally have no idea what could be on that screen, but I will allow you guys to take a guess for yourselves. Also, as a side note, some Skylander license agreements have been updated because of the Activision acquisition. Now, I'm not a big expert on these, and I don't necessarily all know what this means. It looks like these license agreement updates are just so these games can be streamed, which is a little bit odd because the games that are updated are Skylanders Trap Team, Skylanders Superchargers, and Skylanders Imaginators. The only issue with streaming these games is you could stream the game, but if they don't have the portal or the figure, well, this is useless. It won't do anything for you. So I'm just going to take that one with a grain of salt. But for a quick recap, Phil Spencer has name-dropped Skylanders specifically. Phil Spencer wants to bring older franchises back. Phil Spencer wants game teams to be able to make something that they're passionate about. Toys for Bob miss working on Skylanders. They continue to reference it throughout the years in their other projects, even up to this day, and seem to have an itch to include it in something, and it is not that much of a stretch to consider the fact that they could and might add Skylanders to Crash Team Rumble. Toys for Bob are potentially working on a new project that doesn't seem to be Crash Team Rumble. Regardless of what it is, and if it's Skylanders, is still up in the air. And lastly, some Skylander license agreements have been updated. And with that, we have reached the end of the video. I really appreciate you guys watching, and make sure to take everything that is said in this video with a grain of salt. Of course, nothing is confirmed. A lot of this is just reporting on news and having fun with speculation. None of this necessarily means anything, but I thought I would report on it nonetheless. And I will see you in the next one.
'Cause when the